without further ado, if you've been here before, you know what we're going to do next. If you're new, grab your remote and have your thumb on the play button, but don't press it because we're going to do it at the same time on the count of 3. Is everybody ready?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
I love that we're back in the city.
This isn't my favorite dress of hers.
It looks
Why is
kind of
that?
picnicky. It doesn't look like something you'd wear to an art
Yeah,
gallery.
maybe that's why I'm not feeling it because it feels out of place.
Like too casual?
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Maisel, Midge, she just, goes to the beat of her own drum. Regina, we just hit play. We're like a minute, almost a minute and a half in.
That dress does have an interesting hemline, though.
Yeah, I just noticed that. I don't know what's going on there.
But it came with a hat.
I love how proud she is of her purchase.
$25 is kind of a lot of money for the time.
Was that supposed to be somebody there at the end that we would know?
I don't think so. It certainly felt like it though, but I don't think so.
I bet that it is. I bet it's some artist that it's an actor playing some artist of that time. I'm gonna guess.
that normal to make a brisket with a Coca-Cola?
I've made roast with root beer before.
Yeah, I've heard of people making like I think with ham they put like Dr. Pepper or 7 Up or something in it. I've heard different things like that.
It's the secret ingredient.
Sounds bizarre to me. It just probably makes a nice glaze.
Some people use it in chili as well. I've never done that though.
I think it's interesting. It's been exactly a year since the premiere.
Yeah, I didn't think it had been that long. I was shocked.
Is this the bar from Dash and Lily?
It could be. Kind of looks like it, doesn't it?
It looks a lot
Yeah,
like
it
it.
looks a lot.
I guess I was thinking maybe one of the New Yorkers might.
I missed. Did they show the outside on the way in?
No, but I
No, they
mean,
didn't.
look at the inside. The inside. Look at those doors at the end there.
Yeah, and actually, it looks like this
And that's the
table, like
little
where it
area where
is.
they were sitting back there.
Yeah, yeah.
This actor is in so much. He's so good.
He
Isn't
was
it
in
Rupert?
Victoria.
Yes, he was the M, wasn't he?
Say that again, Chris.
Her secretary.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, it's McSorley's, which is
I'm proud of myself.
yeah, no, good call. It's like the oldest bar in New York City. They didn't even allow women until like I don't know, like the 1950s.
Is that why he called it a dirty bar?
Yeah. Oh, it's still a pretty dirty bar.
Ah, Steph, it's Rufus Sewell. That's just trying to remember.
Well, Dash and Lily probably came out or filmed after this anyway, I think.
Oh, absolutely. This had season 2 had been before Dash and Lily was filmed.
I mean, it's kind of shocking that they filmed so much here because it really is like a landmark place.
That's probably why they use it.
Yeah, I bet it's really expensive to film here.
John, how's this drunk acting ranking?
Oh, this is a really valuable, very valuable piece in my collection. This one I will not sell to anyone. I might sell it to somebody, but I'd then have to burn it when they came to pick it up and then put it out with, well, let's say not with a fire extinguisher.
Okay.
Maybe you should put a sub collection of drunks reciting poetry, and he would definitely be at the top of the list.
I can join that chat room. I've still got some Jack Daniels and I can recite poetry.
You could be in John's collection too.
I could.
I mean, it's just impressive at how long the scene is. Like, it's so good.
Honestly, if they did this just the entire episode, I could probably be just as entertained. What a line that was.
It really was.
That was a beautiful apartment. Like, so beautiful in the front.
This episode has a lot of drunk acting.
At least he's not in his childhood bedroom anymore.
That's true.
Yeah, what do you think of his office slash apartment?
I like the industrial look of it. I like stuff like that.
Oof. That's heavy.
Dean in Luke's apartment. She has such pretty hair.
Loving that green.
The teal and the green next to each other. Love it. And those hats. Anybody recognize the blonde?
It's Francie.
It is.
Emily Birchall.
I love that we get Susie's family.
Poor Susie.
That funny little green sash thing. It's coming out of her shirt. That's interesting. Never seen anything like.
It's also
I
coming out underneath too. It's like
Yeah, it's like
I did
asymmetric or whatever.
I didn't even notice that. I'm not a fan.
The place where he stores the bodies.
I just gotta say, the writing in this episode is just so good.
But so is Rufus Sewell.
Oh, yeah.
There's those names again.
I feel like this character might be one of Kendra's favorites.
Where was that little fishing village supposed to be at? Her sister?
The Rockaways.
Oh, the
I
Rockaways.
love
Okay.
Yeah,
her.
that's the Rockaways.
I knew it, Kendra. Why are his parents sitting? I'm confused.
Because
You're
they're elders, that's what he said.
Because the
you're
rabbi
allowed to
Elders
said the
sit
should
elders
sit.
should sit.
Oh,
if you're not medically able to stand.
got it. They just seem like the same age as Midge's parents. That's why I was a little confused. Astrid. She's trying so hard.
I love her.
Astrid is just one of my favorite characters on this show.
Well, she's making up for the fact that she wasn't born Jewish, so she has to pray harder, and that's probably where she's coming.
Did they put toys in Cheerios back then? 'Cause my Cheerios never had toys in them.
I
I
know,
don't
right?
remember.
Ooh, deep cut from Abe. Worry about yourself like you always do. To know.
Apparently, they did put toys in all sorts of cereals to get people to buy them, even Cheerios.
Well, I feel gypped. Mine never came with toys.
They stopped putting toys in cereal boxes in 1974, apparently.
I want a pickle.
A whole jar. She had a whole jar of pickles in her purse.
I like the way she thinks.
The only way to do it. It's terrible acting from Abe.
I love it though.
That's illegal.
Is she
Like,
pregnant? She said that
I,
was disturbing.
oh yeah, that's things. Sounds hilarious. There it is, Shelley.
I completely didn't remember. I haven't seen this in like 3 years or something. So
No, but it was a good observation. Eating eating the pickle.
Well, if you're Jewish and you're pregnant, do you still have to fast?
Yeah, that seems dangerous.
Yeah.
Modified. I was pregnant during Yom Kippur, and I think I don't know. You're not supposed to fast if it's really really bad for you medically.
Okay.
Yeah, pregnancy is one of them, and other ailments or yeah, you don't fast when you're sick.
Let's make lots of
Ah,
money. Hey, that was a
love this
good
song.
one.
So
Did you
what? So
did
there
you
what?
go ahead, John? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I was. Somebody told me that they thought that there was something in this episode that might trigger somebody. That might be a trigger. Did I miss it?
It
Maybe just a
it
swearing.
it was on the Remarkist app.
maybe when she's talking about guys groping her in a club or something, maybe that could that be a trigger? I don't know.
Hmm, I'm
Were the
curious.
pickles a trigger?
I mean,
I don't.
nothing's listed under triggers.
I know. I just went to interesting. Um. Yeah. I
I
don't know.
think these
I'm
events were set up before the trigger was there, and then it's
No,
coming
no.
out.
Somebody actually messaged me about it, which was part of my inspiration for getting in the trigger thing on the event.
Oh, okay.
Well,
And
I
I
would
don't know
think
if they
that
put it in, but they did message me about it, and I'm pretty sure it was for this episode. So
I would think that the like if it was for this episode, it would be the groping, her talking about men groping her.
about men groping her. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or the
Which I
drunk?
can understand. Like I I I mean, I wasn't triggered by it, but it made me very sad to
Or
hear
maybe the
that
scene
because
with the drunk poet in the bar.
Drunk artist?
Maybe
it
drunk
could
art.
be.
Maybe drunk artist. I don't know. Maybe there was. Maybe there was. Maybe the, maybe the scene where he takes her into the back room there, and like and maybe because we've been set up with like, you know, with some uh you know, with Benjamin saying I'm not leaving you alone, and her being like I can handle myself, like maybe just the thought of her going in there could potentially have been like like might have gotten somebody worried or triggered. Interesting.
Well, he did say at the very end, after all that sort of sentimental speech, he said, "Are you sure you won't sleep with me?" or something like that. So I don't know if that's considered, you know, harassment or unwanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could be it. I'm curious. I'll reach back out to the person.
Or it's possible that the wooden leg might have offended people. No, I'm just kidding.
The win.
Maybe he was
wooden
talking about
This
leg.
wooden
murdering your
leg
husband.
triggered
Yeah.
wooden
She's the
legs.
woman
That's
talking
funny.
about murdering her husband, maybe. People didn't
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
Right. That's
Well, I'm sure Shauna Christie would have gotten triggered by that one.
um, could we can we talk about that scene, the art scene,
Oh,
and that
how
specific
good was
moment?
he?
Yeah, I
Rufus
mean
Sewell, so
he
good.
Saruba Sewell is just like one of the just
Brilliant.
towering actors right now. But so um, about that moment, about the scene, and then that moment where he you know says, are you sure you won't sleep with me? And then he says like after I like said all of that, you know, that stuff. Um, how much of like does that moment take away from everything that he said? Does it in that moment do you have a sense that some of that was manipulative, like that he was actually trying to move her? Because the look on her face, that like when he said that, you know, was actually like there was a look of like are you serious?
He
Like is
called
that
it
what
his
this was?
best line. He said, "That's my best line."
That's my best line, you know, like and I know that there's like a lot of like self-deprecation in that scene and with that guy and whatnot, and so that might have been, you know, some, you know, to some degree might have been also a little bit of, you know, self-deprecation in that moment, like that's the best I can do or something. But it was interesting because the you know, that whole thing before was like just so dark and powerful but sad, you know, and then that moment had me wondering like, well, you know, how much of it is how much of what he just said was being said specifically because he knew it would move. But there's something very sad about, something very depressing about that, you
Well,
know.
I wonder if it was more of a defense mechanism or a sort of like, okay,
Right.
I've made myself so vulnerable to her.
Yes.
I better go to some familiar territory. Like, let's jump into bed.
Yeah,
Eh,
that's the other, yeah, yes. I think I'm inclined to think that that's what it is. That's sort of
mhm.
what I would prefer that it be, you know, like because then it doesn't invalidate everything that he said. It just means that that it was just, you know, that the vulnerability of it like was too much for him. But
Right. And
I don't know. I don't know.
saying that's my best line immediately reduces it to um just sort of patter
Right.
and and it sort of it, you know, it neutralizes that that place that they went to, this sort of sentimental and um you know, sort of traditional, you know, traditional life and all that.
Yeah.
And I think that that was why he sort of, it was like a backtrack. And the whole thing about don't you know, I don't want to know anything about, I'll sell him a painting but I don't want to know anything about where it ends up, you know, or I'll
Yeah.
come get it. And
Yeah.
it's sort of the cynicism took over again.
Right.
I love that scene. I think it's so beautiful. Like his vulnerability. And I
agree that he probably flipped the switch and like went back because he knew he made himself so vulnerable. But that's one of my favorite scenes from the entire series.
It was so
Yeah.
quiet while we were watching this. You
Yeah.
guys,
Oh, I mean,
everybody was
God.
so quiet. It was
This was
kind
a.
of interesting.
I mean, in general, this episode was a really. I mean, the the scene at the dinner table was really fun and like elicit some good laughs and was a moment that I felt sort of connected to the rest of us watching. But for the most part, this episode for me was really very introspective and just had me really focused. I loved it. I thought it was an awesome episode. Just the writing was just incredible. Um, but it was there was something very melancholy about the episode in general. You know, just the Joel, like, you know, the drunk moment where he's like, why can't I just be forgiven? And you know, even though, you know, it's nice to see that that Midge is finding, you know, a new possibilities with Benjamin. There's something about her own sort of like, wow, this is weird, you know, like a year has passed and all of these new things are happening. There's just something about the episode that just was really reflective and in places very melancholy.
Probably because it's
So
the anniversary. Sorry.
one thing I did want to bring up that I found that was very interesting because John had said something about one of the people in the art gallery in the beginning scene.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of Easter eggs. There is a woman with a hat that speaks to Midge just like very briefly that looks a lot like Peggy Guggenheim.
Oh.
That's the first one. And then there's a just like a quick throwaway line that someone says it's the coldness that gets you hung in the Whitney.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I heard that. I heard
yeah.
that.
And then some people say the Asian woman that says "nice ladder"
Yeah.
potentially is a nod to Yoko Ono.
Okay, that's what that's the one that I was asking about. And actually that is what I was wondering if perhaps that was Yoko Ono, or it was a nod to her or something. Um, but I just wasn't sure if the time, if like the actual like dates aligned, like 59.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but
I don't know.
it's a nice little nod to just important female figures in
Mm-hmm.
the modern art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
It was cool.
can we talk about Susie's family and Tessie,
Oh my gosh.
who is Emily Burgel,
Francie.
who is wonderful. It's like, learning about Susie's family and all their, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Fractured families. And that whole thing that sets up a whole bunch of stuff, and the mother who can't have alcohol.
I do really love the scene between Susie and her sister at the end.
Yeah.
Tess was it,
Yeah, I
I think.
loved it.
Yeah, I liked that scene. It was very sweet.
You
And
could
I
see Susie a little bit vulnerable in that scene too. That,
there was a lot of vulnerability in this episode.
yeah.
Susie's vulnerable, Joel's vulnerable, Benjamin is vulnerable, the artist. I mean, it's just packed to the brim with it. But I love the scene with Susie's family because it kind of helps explain how she got to be the way she is. Like, that makes total sense
yeah.
now.
In the family photo, she was like, "Why am I always standing 3 feet away?" And then her sister's always crying. It's just very telling.
So, do we think that the big painting, was a bigger painting of the smaller painting? Is that what we're?
No, I
No,
do
it was
not.
what he would
A
consider
painting
his
within a painting.
masterpiece.
A, a painting within a
It's
painting. A
Yeah.
meta
it's what he
painting.
considers his masterpiece and
No.
he can't give up because he's an artist who has a hard time parting with his work.
It
Yeah.
it
That's what my
it
impression
it,
is.
it was also cool that like they never showed it. I mean, obviously they can't show it because if they show it, then they sort of kill the mystery of what it is that he finds so incredible and she finds so incredible, and everyone gets subjective about whether or not they actually think it's awesome or not. But I thought it was a really smart way of doing that.
I'd like to know what they were actually looking at. I mean,
Probably
like
fine.
a blank
Maybe just a
wall.
blank canvas.
Oh, it was likely just a blank
I
canvas. Yeah.
I would love to think though that it was like some sort of joke and they were like having to be all serious while looking at something extremely fun.
I could see that too. I could see somebody being funny, but I don't know. It's such. Jamie Babbitt directed this episode, and she doesn't strike me as somebody. I don't know. I was only directed by her once, but she doesn't strike me as somebody who would like would do something like that, especially in a scene that powerful. She'd be looking to make sure that her artists or that her actors are like at peak performance and that everybody has what they need. She'd be probably super sensitive to like making sure that everybody's in the right emotional place and would likely frown upon somebody doing something like that. And the actors, I could imagine that he would actually not be into it. That people wouldn't do it just out of respect for this. I mean, main actors on the show maybe have like they have their little kind of jokes that they do because they're always working and stuff. But you kind of respect when a guest actor comes on the show. You don't play around like that because you don't really know whether or not they are cool with it.
Yeah, I get that, but I still love to think that like when they unveiled the painting, it's like the dogs playing poker picture or something like that. Like in my mind, that's what I'm thinking it would be.
The velvet sad clown kind of thing.
Velvet
No, I
Elvis.
think that's right. I think that's actually. I feel like that's an acting exercise. Actually, I know that that scene was scripted, but isn't there? I feel like at one point there was some, or in improv, in the world of improv, that's an exercise that is relatively well known. That two people are looking at the same thing and interpreting it or admiring it or commenting on it um and it's up to the audience to sort of figure out
Yeah,
what it
I
is.
think I think that you're right. That is one, and that neither the yeah, that's an improv. I don't know if it's actually an improv game or if that's just like a common improv thing.
Right.
But or like like a cliche or something
Mhm.
that's done a lot. But
Mhm.
yeah, the two actors don't know. Neither of them really know what it is, and it's an actor it's an exercise, I guess, in, well, most improv is, I guess, is an exercise in saying yes, right?
Yeah,
Like, so
yeah.
like
Yes,
somebody
and
will like will exactly, somebody will start to sort of describe what they're seeing, and then the partner will of course have to like have to accept what they're saying as truth and bring it into their performance and add on to it, which then now their partner now has to take that new information and add it as truth. And so they're just looking at it and they keep adding on and they keep creating stuff. And it's not necessarily so the audience can figure out what it is. They just because neither of them actually even totally knew what it was when they started. It's just more of an exercise in saying yes, because by the end of the performance, like what's there on the canvas that they've described to you, like it's huge and complex and has all kinds of funny things in it.
So I just want to say I was quite impressed, John, that you recognized the bars from Dash and Lily.
I mean, instantly, as soon as they walked in, The framing was exactly the same. Those oval windows, the bar, the actual like color of the wood, the like the back bar area, where the liquor is. It was like exact, and everyone's sort of filling the space pretty much exactly the way that they filled the space in Dash and Lily. It was really cool. And then, of course, they went and sat down in the exact spot where her and her friends are sitting down having drinks. It was cool. And I have to imagine probably there's been plenty of stuff that's been filmed in that bar.
Yeah, well, this was filmed. The season was out in 2018, I think, and Dash and Lily was 2020. So obviously, Dash and Lily was probably filmed second. But I wonder if that placement in the corner in that bar is an easy spot to film, because obviously they can't take the ceiling out and all that stuff in there. So I wonder if that's just like a spot that's easy for them to set up cameras and film towards, to show the bar and to give the feel of the place. But I really like that scene in that bar, though. It's just like it was a good overall scene from beginning to end. But also, I'm very partial to Rufus. I like that actor. I like him in pretty much everything I
Yeah,
see him
Rufus
in.
Sewell is awesome.
I do too.
He,
I like him a
he's
lot.
like the he's like my favorite thing, aside from a friend of mine who played a recurring character on the show, but was my favorite thing in Man in the High Castle.
Oh,
Mine too. I loved him in that.
Yeah, I mean, and he's also just like, yeah, his character is so different from what you're seeing here. It's
It really
remarkable.
is.
Yeah.
and
Um,
that's what I like so much about him, because he can play so many kinds of characters,
yeah.
from really
Yeah.
vulnerable, sweet people to very not so nice, you can't stand him kind of guys. And he just has good range. And he just, I have always liked him for a long time. Whenever I see him, I'm always like, yay.
Did
Yeah.
you say Man in the High Castle?
Yeah, he play
Yeah.
he
Who?
play he
who
plays the New York
oh my
chapter Nazi
Yeah.
gosh.
general. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I didn't
That's
even
where
put
I
that together.
first, yeah, that's
Yeah.
where
And
I
he has
first
like,
fell in love with him.
yeah, and he's doing like an East Coast American accent that's pretty good.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Hmm.
he was Lord Melbourne,
Yeah.
Lord
In
M
Victoria.
on Victoria.
Yeah, he's great. So, speaking of Easter eggs, um, does Amy and Dan put Easter eggs for Gilmore Girls fans in Maisel? Because I've noticed a lot of stuff that's said in Gilmore Girls that's like the Leopold and Loeb. That's why I was like, there's those names again, because they were used twice in Gilmore Girls. And then there have been other things too, like the reference to Norma Mailer and some other things. So I was just wondering if they do that on purpose for Gilmore Girls fans, or if they just like those references.
I mean, I would imagine that it's sort of a mix of it all and none of it. It's like, um, you know, they Gilmore Girls is such an important part of their lives and their history and their legacy that how could they not like how could they not love to return to it, And so I'm sure that it's not like I'm sure that they're thinking about the Gilmore Girls fans. I'm sure that they're thinking Gilmore Girls fans are probably going to like this, but I'm sure they're doing it for themselves. I'm sure that they're doing it because they like it, because they, and not like not in the sense that like, oh, they like it but weren't even thinking about Gilmore Girls. I'm sure that they were thinking about Gilmore Girls. I'm sure that they remembered that they used it in Gilmore Girls. They but I'm sure that at least a large portion of it was for their own gratification, because they, you know, writers like to do that. make references to things that they've done in the past, not necessarily for their audience, but for themselves. In like there's a there's a like broader story that writers are writing for their whole life's work, especially a writer, a prolific writer who's been, who has like this catalog of work. I would say that there's a larger story that they're writing about their own life that actually um, is actually woven into the work that the various pieces of work that they do throughout their life. And that's why, when people critique a writer, um, like after they've died or even when they're alive, you know, they're able to pull out themes and motifs that they use countless times in their work. Um, and I think that a lot of it is deliberate because an artist is creating. So, of course, they would be creating a story for their own life as well.
and and also they probably write what they know, and they're very big on that pop culture and the references, and they
Yeah.
research the pop culture icons. For Gilmore Girls was probably more recent, but they were able to pull in all of those old time movie references because from Gilmore Girls. But so they still had all of that in their catalog too.
Yeah, I did actually watching Gilmore Girls, which I thought was funny. I when I was preparing for my fast talk, I was watching a scene with Jess where he actually references Lenny Bruce, and I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, they yeah, they like that stuff. They're fascinated with that history and with that, these eras. I mean, Gilmore Girls play, was definitely like making references to this particular time period, to all kinds of things from this particular time period. So it's not surprising that they would want to write a story in this time period.
Is this the
John, did
time
you
period
read?
of her father's career that when he
Yeah,
was working, that
I believe
influenced her?
so. Yeah, I believe
So,
so.
so then that would make sense why she'd reference it a lot in Gilmore Girls because it's obviously something that was very
Hmm.
influential on her from her father.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sure that that Midge is exactly the same age or roughly the same age as Amy's own mother and father.
It's interesting to like just watch the parallels. I mean, if we hadn't known, say we walked into this completely blind, not knowing that Amy and Dan Amy and Dan created this, and do you think we would still see the parallels?
Probably because you guys are all really huge Gilmore Girl fans. You'd be like, this reminds me of what would happened in this episode of Gilmore Girls.
I mean,
I mean,
I mean,
I guarantee
how
you
many
would
things?
notice it.
Yeah, how many things have we watched with Remarcus that have not been created by Amy and Dan, or they have had no relationship to anything in the show, nor are the creators related to it, but we've noticed things in it that reminded us of Gilmore Girls or were referenced in Gilmore Girls as well.
No.
Yeah, I think that we're such diehard fans that we're just looking for any excuse to be like, hey, Gilmore Girls. Like, I feel like that's what we do.
Or we
We
watch,
just,
but we also been watching a lot of things that were referenced in Gilmore Girls too. So that's why it reminds us of Gilmore Girls. Oh, because they referenced it, like constant, like some of the movies, and so.
Mandy, does Joel remind you of anything relating to Gilmore Girls?
yes, he does. He reminds me of Dean.
I like
And
Oh,
Well, I mean that
Sorry,
scene.
Steph,
I
go
Interesting.
mean,
ahead.
I mean that scene in today's episode where he, collapses drunk and he's like, muttering, essentially like regret and heartbreak for Midge is like, it's like us we know that scene. Every Gilmore Girl fan who is watching this like had to have seen that and been like, oh my gosh, that's Dean on the night of his wedding or the night
I
before
like
his
to
wedding,
block Dean out, John. At that point, no, I get the similarities in that scene, but um, yeah, I was just curious because I never really thought of Joel as anything relating to Gilmore Girls in general, but so I thought I'd ask Mandy because she notices Joel a lot because she can't decide if she likes him or not. So I was just kind of
Yeah.
curious if you have seen things that remind you of Gilmore Girls through that character, and I guess that does make sense, Dean, especially in tonight's episode. The regret, the wish, the
Yeah.
wanting.
Um, just bringing it back to the bar for a second. I did see that yes, it was filmed in McSorley's, but it's actually supposed to be Cedar Tavern, which was in Greenwich Village.
Cool.
Yeah, don't they use a lot of places as stand-ins? I think sometimes because the place they want to be using doesn't exist anymore. But I
Yeah,
think I remember reading that they use a lot of places as
yeah.
stand-ins for other
So, and
places.
Cedar Tavern was like a gathering place for writers and artists, in its heyday. Makes sense why Benjamin would have liked going there.
Yeah. Um, what about I mean the dinner scene. I mean that was classic Palladino. Like everybody talking, like the whole thing, the chaos, like the all of the dialogue, the just this nimble dinner table of conversation and the maid coming in and freaking out. I mean, it was just like I thought it was just like quintessential Palladino.
For
I mean,
and
sure.
and
I
the
love
yeah,
whole
that.
the whole trope of the maids coming in, the maids coming in and wanting to
Yeah.
serve dinner, and it's not time yet, and you know all of that interplay is very 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 much similar to the Gilmore
Yeah.
House dinners.
I'm curious, like, if she has history with maids. Like, I mean, I didn't really think much of it in Gilmore Girls, just because I sort of accepted it as like, oh, it's just this weird thing. We've got a, characters because of their status have maids. Which I don't know. I don't know anybody that has a maid. It's certainly not like a maid that has a maid uniform. Um, and we see it here again. I mean, obviously different time period, but also different class. I sense, from the Gilmores, and it just has me wondering, like, what's up with what's up with the maids thing? What's up with the recurring interest in maids like that? And I'm wondering, is there any history, that she has with maids?
I've wondered that as well. And also the Pepto Bismol uniforms that they wear. I'm not a fan.
That's funny.
Well, a lot of stuff in Midge's kitchen was pink. Maybe it's just something that she and her mom likes, the color pink.
I'm sure it probably is, but there are other shades of pink. Like,
so and the other part of the dinner conversation was at the end. I'm pregnant. You know, that's the
yeah, and
typical.
all I could think is, should she have been fasting? Like, that's all I could think when she announced that.
I don't think. Well, was she fasting?
Yes.
I don't.
Yeah,
Well,
she's been
she
talking about it
so
since last episode.
she was more firm than the more religious than the um than the whole,
family.
both sides of the family. Um,
Right,
and so she might have taken it to the extreme.
right,
I
because she's converted.
Right.
I got a kick out of that whole scene, like that whole like the when they when what's Joel's father's name again?
Moisha.
Moishe.
Moisha.
Moisha.
Man, when he is asking her to do her routine, I mean that part is hilarious. As I mean, and I got a kick out of some of the language, because it reminds me a little bit of language that I've heard, that I remember hearing, when I was young, from my grandparents, and I think a bit from my mom as well. Um, but that, I don't know why I find it so funny, but but the expression "the pits," I just I just love it. I don't know why, but I just love it. I'm pretty sure it's because I heard it a lot when I was young, when he's like, that joke was the pits. It's just, God, so funny.
In the dinner scene, when she was telling them she's a stand up and his parents were not getting it, I kept thinking, they've been kind of dumb in the past, but this is on a different level. Are his parents really that dumb? Like, she said it straight out, or was it just the hunger? Because
It was also like, it was so far from the reality of any of them that it just wouldn't have even crossed their mind. So they didn't take it seriously at first, because it's like saying, I I've sprouted wings. I mean, the whole, it's so far from their minds, far from anything they would have considered for her. She's the mother of of their grandchildren, and she's, you know, um and she's, I don't know. It's not clear whether, I guess they want her to get back together with Joel, but I don't see that necessarily the way I see it with Rose and Abe. But I just don't think that they even think of her in, as funny, you know, or as
They don't it,
as
but I think
yeah,
also compounded is the fact that, her specific type of humor, this
right,
observational humor that is, often, based on things, that she's taking from her life and her own family, are especially not funny to them. Like,
right. I
she's
thought I
she's like talking
yeah,
about, like, them, about her son, like, getting into a fight at the park, and they're not like hearing the humor in that. They're actually hearing, like, he got in a fight in the park. Wait, what, like, what happened there? Like, they're thinking like a family,
right,
um,
right. And also they like, they're sort of, it's sort of highlighting how if she'd told them a knock knock joke, they probably would have fallen on the floor laughing. Like, it's just not even their kind of humor,
Yeah.
right.
her humor. And I thought, I'd seen this episode before, but not for a long time. And I thought she might have said, "Well, I'll talk about this probably." Like, in other words, that whole exchange and everything that happened, and the rabbi coming in, and the rabbi
Oh
walking out,
my
like
goodness.
that, like all of that could have gone into a bit, a routine, some of her act. And I kind of thought she might have said, well, like what's happening now, but it wouldn't have probably gone over as well as what did happen, which was just all of the everybody in the whole, everybody at the table had their own thing going, and Abe was still resenting um
Mm.
Noah, and 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 what's Joel's mother's name? It,
Shirley.
Shirley, right? Shirley was getting food out of her purse, which that's her thing, and like every single person
A
had their
whole
own.
jar of
Yeah,
pickles.
but remember, she had matzah meal in her purse last Yom
I
Kippur,
love
so
that so much.
Shirley
um,
makes me sad because she's just so dumb. I'm like,
Is
it's
she
she's just
dumb
old.
or is she just
She's
plain
just
dumb?
she's old world. That's it's I don't know if it's dumb. I think she's smart about a lot of things.
Yeah, she. I don't think she's dumb. I think she's just the Jewish mother.
Mhm.
The she's just doing what she's been taught to do because that's what older women did. They raised their
Mhm.
family and they did things a certain way and they kept the stuff in their person. You know, you had something for every occasion in your purse and or in your pockets if this should happen. And yes, they were probably all of those people lived through the depression, so you have that whole mentality too.
Right. And I mean, she is a bit of a caricature in a way that
Right.
she and Moisha are both not as fully realized as Abe and Rose. Um, and I think that that's part of it too. Is just sort of like, for
They're
her to be sort of obtuse about the and also they are really hungry. And it is a miserable thing to have to wait after at the end of Yom Kippur, which is why you saw everybody running out. That was
That
that
was a
was
Yes,
a
it's
funny
25
shot from
hours.
above.
yeah.
Just all like everyone, just like I almost feel like they like sped up. Like if it didn't it feel like maybe they sped up the film a little bit. Everyone like kind of scurried out, like almost like a Benny Hill, like a
Well, it was
Benny
like
Hill episode.
Yeah, it's a
what was it,
25-hour fast.
50 chairs and 57 Koreans or something? What was the
Yeah, it's like 52 seats,
oh
67
50,
Koreans or
right,
something.
right, right.
As
But
funny as the oh, sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's like a 25-hour fast. So yes, we're like starving. We don't want to deal with anything. We're all short-tempered because we're hungry. So you go and get your dinner when it's time to eat.
And they kept leaving her mother places. That poor woman. They tied her to the bench. Oh, man. I felt bad for her mom. She was never conscious, though, so she didn't know what the hell was happening to her.
As funny as the dinner scene was, though, I think my favorite part was when Susie greeted the rabbi. I don't know why, but I just thought it was very funny.
I know it was her holiday too, or her observance too.
I think the funniest moment for me in that, I mean, aside from Moisha's like reactions to every one of her jokes, um, it was a really small thing. But when the rabbi left, I kind of was expecting that the rabbi, because they were like, tell a joke. I was kind of expecting that she was going to stop him, or she was going to say a joke and he was going to stop and turn around and kind of rejoin. But he just didn't. He just kept he just kept walking, and you just see him walk off in the distance of the scene itself. And I don't know why, but I found that so funny.
Well, it's interesting that was um in another episode that would have been the main event, is the rabbi coming, and indeed that was the big deal in the first episode. Was we got the rabbi after offending him and all that, at the wedding or whatever. And a few years later we got the rabbi, and then they had to, of course, because of what happened between Joel and Midge, um you know
I think that that's what
cancel
I found so
cancel.
funny about it, is that there's all this build up to the rabbi, and he's
Right.
really just there for just not even like not even for 5 minutes, you know, and he leaves, and it's just like they don't even they just let him go. He's gone.
Well, yeah, he
Right.
even said he had like another house. Like he's got several houses on his night.
And Rose didn't even try to stop him. Like that was such a goal for Rose, and she was just like, and then last year just never even happened. Um and by the time by the time Rabbi leaves, Rose is not even concerned. I love when Midge talks about, well, I do this thing about Ethan getting beat up by or getting bullied in the park, and says, "Which park is that?" I just thought that was
Yeah, I
great.
love that. I mean, I just loved all
I
that
mean,
that
everybody
whole
was so
scene.
literal
Everything
about it.
was everything about it. Just the directing, the acting, the writing, all of it was just a beautiful dance, a beautiful comedic dance.
And if anyone didn't harvest, you have like 4 more minutes.
So would you
I'm
guys say that this is your favorite episode of the season? Those of you who are
hands
watching it for
down.
the first time?
This is my favorite episode. This is my favorite episode.
Yeah, I do like this episode more than a lot of the others.
That that was half of a joke
I was
because
gonna say, John, you're getting kind of predictable on that.
because I know I say that
So
every time.
truly, my
But
favorite
but
episode.
I
Until the next one.
yeah, I don't know if I'd say it was my favorite episode. It might have been. I loved it. You know, at this stage, I don't really know. I'm loving this show, so that's that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just
That
but like some of our first time viewers weren't quite sure about it before and stuff, and I this is where I kind of think like I what I like about season two is just like the Catskills and this episode and these they're just so good. You know,
yeah,
even
I'm
if you don't
curious.
like all the
Are there
characters.
any? I'm curious. Are there any folks who are watching this that are still like, yeah, not for me, but I'll stick with it because it's a Slate show? Like, I mean, I have to imagine that these last few episodes, there's just so much great character stuff going on. You know, whether you know, find the characters, people that you would want to befriend in real life or not. I mean, I just think it's just fascinating storytelling and really interesting
And
characters.
Okay.
Yeah.
looking beautiful too. I mean, the set pieces, just
So
going to the
gorgeous.
Catskills, the scenery, and all of the everything that went with it.
The
Just the
fashion, all of
yeah,
it's
and
really
the
great.
dancing and all that. I think that, I mean, we're preaching to the converted, but I think that you know, I think that that might attract people too, in the way that in the way that the look of Mad Men kind of attracted people who maybe weren't really into, weren't really admiring of any of the particular characters here and there, but just the look of it and just the flow of it, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So John, what are your predictions for the last three episodes of the season?
Well, um, uh, I'm still predicting that the Benjamin thing will end. And it's a bummer because it really he's a really great charming character that it feels right. It feels like they should be together, or at least that they should get a chance to really, like, explore it explore a relationship more. But I think that I think that it's gonna end before the end of the season. Probably at the end of the season. Now after this episode, I would probably say like that it's probably a finale episode that has Midge and Benjamin breaking up.
Well, according to Susie and Joel, touring and a relationship does not go hand in hand.
Do not go
Yeah,
hand in
that's
hand.
what I was
Yeah,
about to say too. Like it was sort of foreshadowing that the relationship's gonna end.
yeah. Which is a bummer, but I mean, that's also part of why I'm predicting it is, as sad as it is, that's storytelling. Like that. We need that kind of, like, stuff, and that's not to say that the character won't come back, um, or that this won't be a character that sort of remains somewhere on the horizon for her, returns every once in a while. But I don't think that he will be as big of a part, or at all of a part in season three. Um, he feels very much like a character created for the season.
I
Um,
will. Sorry, go ahead.
let me think. One other prediction. I think that I think that she will. I think that she will have another. She will have another interaction with Sophie before the end of the season. And I think that something like extraordinary is going to happen career wise. Like she's going to get some really amazing, incredible opportunity. Those are my three predictions.
Yeah, I feel like that the last one I feel like is a pretty decent one. I don't know about Sophie showing back up, but I do think the career she'll have something happen. But as bad as I felt for Joel in this episode, like where he was in the bed saying that he just wants to be forgiven, toward the end when he was like, "Oh, well, you can't like tour while you're in a relationship, like that's not going to work." Excuse me. Just a
You all right?
You, eh, Mandy, are you okay?
yeah, I'm okay.
Get
Okay.
all
You're not.
choked up
We
over
all got
Yeah,
we
what's
all got
wrong?
like
What's
legit
wrong? You're
worried.
not choking.
They're like somebody get to Alabama immediately. We cannot let her die.
No,
Remarcus' first emergency.
I just swallowed
Get
wrong.
on.
but but yeah, when he was like, "Oh, well, you can't be in a relationship while you're touring," it was super selfish. Like he was saying it for selfish reasons, which frustrated me because he has like 3 dates lined up, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Like,
Well,
you're
For
seeing
sure.
people too."
so actually though, what the whole episode is about losing a lot because of your art. Like that's what Look, I Made a Hat is about. That's what the artist was talking about, like I lost everything but I have this. Midge is, she's talking about her ago she lost her whole life but she gained the art. And so that's, I think, an extension of like, you can't have it all. You actually are giving up everything for the art.
No,
So,
I get
like,
that, but I
yeah.
think like with Susie saying it, it makes sense. But when Joel started saying it too, like he wasn't saying it for her career.
Yeah,
He
but
was saying it
he was
because
saying it because
he doesn't,
he's saying it because he's jealous. I
yeah,
mean,
he
I
doesn't
mean,
want her with anybody. And I'm
yeah,
like,
I
do
know.
you really have a
I,
right to be jealous?
he doesn't have the right to be jealous, but jealousy is not something that like people, that people take a
That,
like,
yeah, that's
they
true.
don't you don't take
They
a
don't
ticket.
choose
You,
it. Yeah.
yeah, you don't take a ticket for that. Like it happens. And I also sort of accepted that moment as mostly comedic because we all completely know
Yeah. I
that
mean,
he does not care about her touring. He only
yeah, it
cares.
was, it was funny, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I'm very back and forth with Joel.
He's a complex character. He's a great character. He's very complex. He, certainly has his, sides of him that are not uh, as appealing, but he's interesting to follow. I mean, I'm so glad that this show is like giving his story that much weight. Separate from Midge, but also in a way that still interweaves it. I think it's just really cool storytelling.
Wait, can we just go back real quick to something that Diana was saying? Because I found it kind of interesting about losing everything for the art and how it related to Midge and the artist, and maybe it's Joel in a way. He's kind of, I don't know, maybe not, but he's doing everything to save that factory and buying that building. He's kind of losing himself to that place that he's in. I don't know. I just I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't know what the title of the episode related to until Diana told me before the show, and it made me see the show completely differently. I just kind of interesting, and yeah, I don't know. So we didn't really talk about that a whole lot, I guess. The losing the art, losing yourself to the art kind of thing, and giving up everything
Yeah.
else to make what you would be your masterpiece kind of thing.
I have a feeling that we're going to have plenty of opportunity to talk about that because it feels like that is a big theme in this show. I mean, Midge is like, if she goes on tour, that does mean she's not going to be seeing her children, that often. There's a lot of aspects to the themes of this series that really have to do with like what do we give up when we like pursue our dreams and our passions and all of that.
And did anybody else notice that Astrid was the only one that wondered when she sees her children, when she realized what she'd been doing
Yeah,
every night?
that's why I laughed when John said that, because I was like thinking, let's be honest, she doesn't really see her children much now.
No, I know. Exactly.
Well, I think also maybe Joel, or I don't know, maybe somebody
Maybe
just.
Joel gives up everything to help her pursue her art,
Well,
to support the children.
well, I was going to say that but it was originally his dream to be a stand-up comic, and so it's possible that there's a tinge of jealousy and and a a secret, maybe latent, subconscious desire for her not to succeed because he couldn't succeed, and that he, that there's a jealousy or enviousness of there.
I think he wants her to succeed in the comedy. He just doesn't want her with another man.
Yeah,
So
like
he's trying to use the comedy as a reason why she shouldn't be.
That makes sense
but
too.
I don't think he's wrong. She couldn't really viably date some doctor in New York if she's trying to tour and become successful in her career.
Yeah, I don't really like, as much as I like to hate on Joel a lot, which is quite a lot. I don't really think he's I think at first he was a little envious or jealous, but I don't get that vibe from him now. I think that he genuinely is supportive. Um and I think we kind of learned that in the episode where he basically said that they can't be together because she won't be able to succeed in the way that she should, or something to that effect. I'm
He
obviously
couldn't listen
paraphrasing
to her
wildly,
do
but
that style of comedy, talking about him and be with her at the same time. So for her to succeed, she'd have to do that, and then he couldn't be with her, kind of thing, was what he was saying.
yeah, and
He
that
was
he wanted
admitting he
her to
wasn't man enough to
succeed.
stay with her and let her make jokes about him in public. That's what he's kind of saying.
Hey folks, I'm gonna actually head out. But thank you, Shauna, Steph. Shauna, was this your episode originally, or was this the one that was
It was originally Nikki and Shauna.
Nikki and
Yeah.
Shauna? Oh, okay, got it. Oh,
So
Nikki and Shauna. Nikki
Nikki's
was
Sunday
host.
with Kim now.
Got it. Got it. Well, thanks for jumping in and making that switch.
no problem.
And um, I mean, I don't know what to say other than I love this show, and I can't wait to continue and see what happens next. Uh, and all right, everyone, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the
Good night.
discords in the clubhouses.
Good night,
Good night,
Good
everyone.
Have a
everyone.
good
night.
night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thanks for
Night.
hosting,
Thanks,
Shauna and
Shauna. Thanks,
Steph.
Steph.
Bye,
Yes. Good
guys.
night, guys.
I'm gonna go ahead and close the room
Good
out.
show.
Yep,
Night.
go ahead.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.